Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence with Dr. Chakib Chraibi, who is with the Virginia International University. He's the Dean of the School of Computer Information Systems. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
So, first of all, as a part of some background, you are the Dean of the school at Virginia International University, which is here in Fairfax.
Absolutely. So I'm the Dean of the School of Computer Information Systems at the Virginia International University, which is located in Fairfax. In my school, we offer several programs, graduate and undergrad, in computer science, computer information systems, as well as software engineering and information technology. We've been in Fairfax for 20 years now. I know a lot of people haven't heard from.
That's right. I know, and that's why I want people to understand right here.
I'm glad to be here to tell you a little bit more about the university. It's a non-profit institution, and our mission is to educate people from all over the world, and in the area of computer science and business, education, and political science. Most of our students are actually from abroad, international, but we have also several domestic students, and we are here to serve them and give them the best education we can provide. We have very highly qualified instructors that have a lot of experience in the field, and then part of our mission is also to reach out to the community. So we have a STEM institute in my school, and the goal of the STEM institute is to encourage students and others to get into the field of technology, because we think it's very important for us, and it's a critical field for the United States.
Well, it definitely is, and I would say too that is, technology is the one thing that makes us global, more so than anything else. The language of technology connects the world in a way that language doesn't connect us.
Absolutely. So I always say that, I speak multiple languages, but I know also programming languages.
Right.
And sometimes I joke, and then I said, you need to learn at least a programming language, because that's the language of the future.
It is the language of the future. And I think it's interesting that you've got such an international population of students, because this area, Northern Virginia, is very culturally rich. Our public school systems have 100 languages that are spoken, and the fact that you've got a university where people from multiple cultures can come together and not just have the benefit of great instruction, but the benefit of classmates that bring so much different experience and perspective.
And absolutely, and then a lot of people don't know that Virginia and the DMV area is, in terms of high tech, is the second largest area where you have, of course, the government, but we have also a lot of industry. That's why we call it the Silicon of the East.
That's what we're trying to be.
Absolutely.
The Silicon Valley of the East.
Absolutely, Silicon Valley of the East. So, so there is a lot of opportunities for not only domestic students but also international students to be here, and get to know each other and share their not only their cultural background but also their knowledge in technology and other fields.
In technology, and so we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, which is a small part of a really huge field that is really bringing, especially to third world and developing countries, technology, things like smartphones or cell phones and the things that people can do economically because of that kind of technology, and how you've got small business people in Kenya who are able to actually do business without hard currency. I mean, it's fascinating, but technology is what underlies all of it.
Absolutely. Technology is impacting us a lot already. And like you said, for instance, in Africa, in Kenya and other countries there, mobile devices, the use of mobile devices is in terms of percentage, is higher than in the United States. And they use it a lot for business interactions and transactions and so on and so forth. So technology is really changing a lot of things in a very fast way. But let's get ready, because artificial intelligence is going to be even more impactful.
Yeah, and so explain to us, the good, the bad, and everything in between, and what we should know looking for, especially to the future of jobs and what jobs might be eliminated by artificial intelligence, or the jobs of the future where you need to know something about artificial intelligence, because that is the job of the future. Absolutely.
Let me first try to define artificial intelligence. There's a lot of hype about artificial intelligence, and then I think it's very helpful for everyone to learn about it, because the effect of artificial intelligence is going to be tremendous. It's going to be awesome. It's going to affect every part of our life. So a lot of people are talking already about the fourth industrial revolution, and it's going to be fueled by artificial intelligence. So let's try to understand what it is. So it can be defined as the ability of a machine to perform cognitive functions that usually associated with the human mind, such as perceiving, reasoning, learning, and problem solving. So artificial intelligence is provide a machine with autonomous intelligence to try to help us make decisions or solve problems. So talking about, like, for instance, like you said, in Africa, for instance, artificial intelligence is already being used now to help us with everything that we do in our daily lives. For instance, I'm sure most of us are upset with traffic.
Right.
So when we use our GPS system, actually, AI is helping us trying to find the best route.
Right.
When we use our phone, the virtual personal assistant like Siri or Alexa or someone or those, also or use artificial intelligence to address our problems and so on and so forth. So what is going to happen in the future is, like you said, there are going to be some good things
about it,
and some bad things about it, like any other tool.
Right.
But this one is a very powerful tool, so that's why it's very important, and that's why I thought it would be very important for me to be here, is that everybody needs to know what artificial intelligence is, because we need to make some decisions, and the more people involved, the better, because it's going to be becoming something that we have to make decisions for or against, because it's going to be affecting us. Right. Definitely there will be some job disruption based on artificial intelligence. Some studies have shown that by 2020, there will be a loss of maybe 1.8 million jobs. But at the same time, they predict that there will be 2.3 million jobs created through artificial intelligence. So you want to be part of the
future, the forward-looking.
Exactly.
And I think people do sometimes start to mourn. Autonomous cars is one example of like, well, what will happen to taxi drivers and bus drivers and Uber drivers if, we are all riding in autonomous cars? But we have to be thinking about what are the transportation jobs of the future then. You can't look at what we're losing so much as look at how you have to be ahead of the curve on what skills you need to get those jobs.
Well, sometimes we cannot stop technology. I think it's very important for us to understand what's going on, to be active participant in the changes, but we need to be forward-looking, because technology has helped us a lot. Let's talk about big problems in the world hunger, health, and wars, and so on and so forth. We have actually now, there is hunger in the world has dropped dramatically. People are healthier. We are producing much more to feed ourselves and then prepare ourselves for the future and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of things that technology has brought to us. And it will continue to do so. So for instance, with AI, we can see, I remember when I was a student, I studied in France, and I had my roommate was studying to become a doctor. And then he asked me to write an article about computers. At that time, the computers were just starting.
20 years ago, right?
And then I said, okay. And then my article was about when a computer is going to become a medical doctor, can be as helpful as a medical doctor. And then I was like, maybe several years down the road. I believe with AI we can be there. So that means that maybe in remote areas, here in the United States or all over the world, people will have access to maybe it's going to be a machine, but machine that is really can do the work and help you and treat you like a regular doctor, because it's going to have the knowledge of a doctor. And that's what's fascinating about artificial intelligence is that I just give you an example. Recently, they had a competition, and they were competing to see which researchers can actually do automatic drug discovery. So they had a competition from artificial intelligence teams, as well as teams from the big research, pharmaceutical research corporation, and so on and so forth, from Merck and others. And the team that won was actually an AI team. But the fascinating thing about it is that the AI team didn't have any knowledge of life science, chemistry, medicine, nothing. They just fed the machine the knowledge, and the machine was able actually to solve the problem. So that's fascinating. So that means that a machine can do things if we cram into it the knowledge that it needs.
The data, and you know that's one of the things that's interesting about the Innova's personalized medicine. And they're building a huge campus where ExxonMobil used to be. And the thing about mapping the human genome, of putting DNA in a database and then putting medical protocols attached to gene mapping, is that a computer will be able to go through those records and find patterns and be able to come up with evidence-based conclusions at a much more rapid rate than the human mind could ever do.
Absolutely. So they, the same thing for, like, for instance, when you have an X-ray, so they did some research that sometimes specialists, they will disagree with each other,
right?
At a very high rate. Sometimes 42% of disagreement between them. Because there are probably, I mean, as you and we know, we are human beings.
Right.
So we have the human brain, which is the most awesome things in the world.
It's very complex.
But at the same time, we get tired. We don't function the same way. That's why I always tell my students when I teach them computers, I said, you know, a computer works the same. It's very reliable. We perform sometimes better in the morning, or maybe after lunch we need a little break, and so on and so forth.
And speaking of a little break, we are going to take a little break. Please join us after this break when we talk again to Dr. Chakib Chraibi about artificial intelligence.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Hey guys, today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Give kisses. Give kisses. Look. Give kisses. Give kisses. You heard how loud that was.
I know,
sleep through that.
I heard. It wasn't you.
Yeah.
It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration.
An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you.
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and I'm talking with Dr. Chakib Chraibi of the Virginia International University. He's the Dean of the School of Computer Information Systems. And let's talk a little bit about learning and what artificial intelligence can bring to that process.
Well, we know that whatever we have accomplished, us as human beings, we are the most powerful species in the world. We accomplish it thanks to our intelligence. So it's fascinating, and that's why there's a lot of fear about AI. If we teach machines to be intelligent, and they learn how to actually become more and more intelligent, how do we learn? We learn through examples and by practicing. So for instance, when we heard that Garry Kasparov, the world chess champion, lost to a computer. And then a few years later we saw, I mean, everybody's fan of Jeopardy, right? So and then we saw the champion who won like 74 times and then got beat by a computer. And recently, a computer beat the world champion of a game called Go, which is a Chinese game, very complicated, more complicated than chess. That was a proof of concept, basically. That means that we can actually teach machines to be intelligent, but machines can teach themselves to be intelligent, because when this machine that beat this Go world championship Go player, they did it. The machine actually was fed some data, some information about the game, but it's also start watching other players play, and then start playing with itself. So it developed actually that capacity of learning. So where is the limit? That's what the scary part of it is. Like theoretically, there is no limit. What machine learning, which is now the foundation of this resurgence, behind the resurgence of artificial intelligence, has gone very powerful, because we are able now to do it. We have developed the computational power to do it. We have the data. We're creating data every day. I mean,
we've got more data now than, I mean, the data, massive amounts of data, but the human mind cannot possibly process that with the same speed as technology can. There's no way.
And reliably as a machine. So we're still smarter. There is two types of artificial intelligence. Let me clarify that. There is what's called supervised learning and unsupervised learning. In supervised learning, we feed data to the computer, like observation. Like for instance, I'm sure you use email.
Sure.
And then I'm sure that you have noticed that there is a big drop in spam.
Right. You've got a spam filter.
Exactly. So now we have a very smart spam filter, and that spam filter, how we taught the spam filter to be reliable and efficient is by feeding it data. So we fed some observations, so we fed emails, and then we characterized them with what we call features, and then we told the machine, this is a spam email, this is not a spam email, and based on that data, it was able to now
sort it out for you.
Yep. And then tell us if it's one or not. So that's called supervised learning, because we
have inputs. We are doing inputting.
Input and then giving the output, the right output for the machine. What's more difficult is what's called unsupervised learning. Like you said, is when the machine finds patterns. We fed data to the machine, but we don't know exactly how that data relate to each other, but the machine is actually able to come up with some patterns in there. That's more difficult. And that's what we do ourselves, human being, very naturally. For instance, we can have a toddler. They learn, like for instance, if they're playing with a toy and they release it, it's going to drop on the floor. So the next time they don't want to lose the toy, they're going to hold it. That's unsupervised learning. They learn it by themselves. So we still having difficulties with machine learning to reach that. But eventually we will do that. We're also looking at what's called master algorithm. That means an algorithm that can solve any problem. So if we reach that stage, some predict it's going to be 20 years from now, some of 40, some 50, 100 years. then we have to really worry, because we can reach what's called super intelligence, where actually a machine is much more intelligent than a human being. That's one. And number two, it can learn how to become even more and more intelligent. It's going to be a super intelligent being. That phase is called singularity.
Right.
And then when we reach that stage, what's going to be our role as a human being?
Yeah, exactly, because there's a moral question,
Right.
So you can have a super intelligent computer, a machine that is more intelligent than a single human mind, but they're not necessarily a sentient being, because we have social emotional learning that a machine up to this point, I say, doesn't seem to possess. And so that is always going to separate, up to this point, as far as we know, a super smart machine from an actual human being, because we have more inputs than just knowledge. We have sensory inputs too.
Well, machines also start learning how to do that, because they're going to start learning how to perceive, how to think, exactly how the human brain does. So machine will reach that point. So now the problem is to see if they're going to, but they're still goal-oriented. So our the issue is that how to make them moral beings.
Right. I think that is the big question mark. How do you make a machine a moral being?
And follow orders, because at some point, when we tell the machine that you have to achieve a goal, that's basically what machine intelligence, machine learning does. Well, we are not. Sometimes, if we try to make the machine do something that is against that goal, it might react in a way that we haven't expected it to do, to act. So our control is going to be probably very somehow limited. We're not sure about where we're going with this. So, and sometimes the other things that's very important for us to know, and that's why I believe that everyone should learn about artificial intelligence and see how we're going to apply it. Of course, in the short term, I'm worried about military applications.
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit earlier too about cryptocurrency.
Right.
And how do you control who is making purchases? I mean, funding terrorism, laundering money internationally through some things like Bitcoin. That's a place where artificial intelligence could be helpful, or not.
Yes, because AI is basically technology on steroids. So
right.
Whatever the bad actors are going to actually have more.
Right.
More weapons to do bad things.
Let's talk about that too, because of the distribution of technology, and we found this with terrorism too. It used to be when you fought a war, you had a conflict, it was between sovereign nations. You had civil wars as internal conflicts, but it was sovereign nations. Now you have Al-Qaeda or you have ISIS. And with Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies, you could have bad actors who are not even part of any identified organization.
Right, because then they have what happened with the internet. That means that we're all connected.
Right.
That everyone or anyone can be affected by the action of maybe one single person. At the beginning of the development of the internet and so on and so forth, we used to have problems with viruses. I mean,
right.
A virus
Malware.
created in one little place in the world will affect everyone in the rest of the world. So the
ransomware is a good example of how that has gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, so technology can actually make anything, or even the smallest thing, has a huge impact on everyone. So that's why we have to be careful and we have to be knowledgeable. And AI is going to emphasize even more. So that's very important for us to do that. But at the same time, the AI is going to help us do a lot of things that we don't like to do. Or I think in the short term, I see a lot of potential with AI, and then I think we're going to love a lot of application that with AI, because it's going to take care of repetitive things. And what's going to happen with AI, and is that I remember when I used to teach computers to students, I used to tell them, listen, this is a computer. and this is us. Us, we speak natural languages. Computers speak machine language or binary language. So whenever you want to use the computer for something, you need to convert what you
Right.
want it to do in machine language terms. So that's why we need to learn programming languages and so on and so forth. What's fascinating now is that paradigm is there is a big paradigm shift in human and computer interaction. So now the machine is getting closer to us. So the machine is learning language. It can do language translation. It can get orders from us to voice recognition.
Like Alexa.
So all these things
Yeah.
are amazing for us. So we're
Right.
going to benefit a lot of that. I think we're going to be even more intelligent because we can actually have now intelligent machines that can help us solve problems. It's the long term where things are still fuzzy.
Right. And I think we've adopted it without really realizing it. When you think about Google, for instance, you know, we Google things all the time that we would not have been able, you know, the smallest child can Google something. They know how to use it, and they also know that all of this knowledge is available within a few seconds, no matter where they are, if they've got a handheld device. And I think we've come to rely on that more than we realize, whether it's GPS or it's like, look up the name of that whatever when you're sitting at a dinner party. Whoa, what was it? We are relying on it more than we realize. And so I think it's not going to be an abrupt transition. I think it's going to be a very slow, incremental, and before we realize it, we are already there relying on artificial intelligence to do certain kinds of tasks.
And absolutely, and then we can see that there are some applications of it in in everyday life. I mean, the story that I love about the application of artificial intelligence is about this farmer in Japan that is a cucumber grower. Yeah. And apparently I didn't know about this, but when you plant cucumbers, they come in different shapes.
Right.
Small, big, curvy, and so on and so forth. And apparently you need to sort them and to make them and put them together with the cucumber same size or same shape and so on and so forth. So it's very tedious and to do. With the AI, you can do it very quickly, and it's all done by machine. So they use camera to check the cucumber and then make the decision for you. And obviously it helps a lot.
And I love that because it's such a practical application. Farming and artificial intelligence, not something people would put together.
Absolutely.
But that is a great example. And thank you so much for being here with me today. And this is what you need to know about artificial intelligence.